Imagine waking up one day to discover that your neighbor has just landed 10 million quid without paying absolutely anything for it. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? But that's precisely what happened in the football world this summer, and Josh Windas's story is so astonishing that even the most seasoned experts in the sport have been left gobsmacked. Let's rewind a bit so you can understand how it all began. Josh Windass isn't just any old player who appeared out of nowhere. At 31 years of age, he carries on his shoulders an impressive wealth of experience. For years, he was a fundamental piece at Sheffield Wednesday, a traditional English football club with a rich history brimming with past glories. It was 182 appearances in the Owls shirt, 182 times he stepped onto the pitch representing those colours, battling, grafting and scoring important goals. But here's where the plot begins to get interesting. Sheffield Wednesday, like many clubs around the world, started facing serious problems with money. We're not talking about minor budget squeezes, but genuine financial difficulties that began affecting the club's day-to-day operations. And when a club faces this sort of situation, difficult decisions need to be made. Players need to be sold, wages need to be cut, and the entire structure starts to wobble. It was in this turbulent scenario that Windass found himself at a crossroads. He'd given everything for that club, but there came a moment when he needed to think about his own career. And here's a fascinating detail: it wasn't the first time he'd thought about leaving. The previous summer, a year before his definitive departure, Windass already had one foot out of the Wednesday door. Discussions were already advanced, the desire for change already existed. But then something happened that made him reconsider. Danny Roll, Sheffield Wednesday's manager, decided to stay at the club. And for Windass, that meant something. Roll wasn't just another run-of-the-mill manager. He was someone Windass believed in, someone who had a project, a vision. So Windass thought, if the gaffer's staying, perhaps I should give it another go as well. And that's what he did. He remained for another year, honored his commitment, continued playing and giving his best. But when the summer of 2024 arrived, everything was different. The club's financial situation hadn't improved. Prospects remained uncertain, and Windass, already 31, knew he didn't have infinite time to make career choices. In football, particularly when you're past 30, each decision counts far more. Each season could be the last at the top level. So he took a bold step. He terminated his contract with Sheffield Wednesday. Let that sink in for a moment. He simply ended the link, becoming a free agent. And when a player with Windass's CV becomes available on the market without a transfer fee, it's like lighting a giant beacon in the middle of the night. Clubs start ringing, agents start working, offers start appearing. And here's the twist that few expected: Rangers, one of Scottish football's giants, came knocking at the door. This wasn't just any team making an inquiry. It was Rangers, a club where Windass had played before and where he had incredible memories. He knew the environment, knew the passionate support, knew what it was like to wear that weighty shirt. It was a comfortable option, safe, almost obvious. But Windass surprised everyone. When he spoke to The Athletic, one of the most respected sports journalism outlets in the world, he was completely transparent about his choices. I could have gone back to Rangers this summer. I had some really good times there, a great club. But I didn't think it was right at this time, he revealed. Think about the courage of that decision. Turning down a club the size of Rangers isn't something you do lightly. So where did he go? To Wrexham. And if you're thinking, Wrexham? Seriously, you're not alone. Many people had exactly that reaction. Wrexham, after all, was in the third tier of English football not so long ago. But here's what many didn't understand at the time: Wrexham is no longer just a small club trying to survive. Since being bought by actors Reynolds and McElhenney, the club has become a genuinely ambitious project, with serious investment, improving infrastructure and a clear vision of reaching the top. And Windass saw all of this. He didn't just look at where Wrexham was, but where the club was heading. It was quite easy to make the decision to leave Sheffield Wednesday. I was ready for a fresh challenge, he explained. And what a challenge. He wasn't just changing clubs, he was embarking on a project that has everything to become one of modern football's most incredible stories. The immediate results showed that Windass made the right choice. In his first 6 matches wearing Wrexham's shirt, he'd already rattled the net 3 times. 3 goals in 6 games might not seem extraordinary at first glance, but for a midfielder, these numbers are excellent. He's not a pure striker, whose sole function is to score goals. He's a player who constructs moves, who distributes passes, who organizes the midfield. And yet he's still scoring regularly. But Windass's contribution goes far beyond goals. Since arriving at Wrexham, he's become a natural leader in the dressing room. When James McLean and Matty James, the usual skippers, aren't on the pitch, it's Windass who wears the armband. That's in less than 3 months at the club. Can you imagine the respect he's earned in such a short time? And now we arrive at the point that left the entire football world impressed. Nathan Salt, a specialist journalist who's covered English football for years, made a bombshell declaration about Windas's signing. Getting Josh Windass on a free will easily be one of the best signings any team makes in the Championship all season, he stated. But he didn't stop there. Salt was even more specific. You get a player that is probably worth 10 million quid on a free, a goal-scoring midfielder, the de facto number 10. He's in a position that he wants to be. He wants to be off the forward and not having to be the one who's back to goal with everything bouncing off him. £10 million. Let that number echo for a second. We're talking about approximately 60 million reais. That's the value that experts reckon Wrexham would have had to pay if Windass still had a contract with another club. But they paid nothing. Zero. It's as if the club had found a 60 million reais note on the pavement. To put this in perspective, most Championship clubs, the second tier of English football where Wrexham now play, can barely afford to pay 10 million for a single player. It's an astronomical sum for that level. And Wrexham obtained that value in the form of a player without spending a single penny on a transfer. But the story gets even better. Windass didn't sign a short-term contract, thinking only about the present. He committed himself to Wrexham until 2028. That's 4 years of commitment, 4 years in which he'll be completely dedicated to the project. And when asked about his objectives, Windass was crystal clear. He wants to help Wrexham reach the Premier League in the coming years. The Premier League, the pinnacle of English football. One of the most competitive and wealthy leagues in the entire world. That's the ambition, and it's not just some vague dream. With the structure that Wrexham is building, with the investments being made, with players of Windass's quality arriving, this objective doesn't seem as impossible as it would have seemed a few years ago. Think about the complete narrative. An experienced player, who could have chosen the easier path by returning to a big, established club, decided to embrace a bigger challenge, riskier, but potentially far more rewarding. It's the type of story that makes football so captivating. And you, what do you reckon about Windass's decision? Was it genius or madness to turn down Rangers? Leave your opinion in the comments down below. And if you're enjoying this type of content, with in-depth analyses of the most fascinating stories in world football, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any updates. Each week we bring incredible stories like this one that you won't find anywhere else. Subscribe now and become part of this community that's passionate about football.